You're listening to The Josh Liddick Show, a sports talk podcast. And here's your host, Josh Liddick.
And how's it going, everyone? My name is Josh Liddick, and welcome to the Josh Liddick Show. And today we have a very special guest, my good friend Ben Lentine. Ben, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it too. He's like most of us, is a huge sports fan, and we usually have pretty heated discussions on sports. And today we get to actually discuss them in front of a microphone. So I'm looking very forward to this opportunity, of course. So first things first, we have a lot to cover tonight. We only have a couple things to cover tonight, and it's going to be a short edition of the Josh Liddick Show. First things first, though, the big story out of Cleveland this week was that Coach David Blatt out as head coach of the Cleveland Cavaliers. Of course, last season's run to the NBA Finals with the return of LeBron James, losing to Golden State in 6 games, and then this year, 30-11 start to the season, and unfortunately fired after only his second season. What are your thoughts on that, Ben?
Like everyone else, I was surprised. I didn't see this coming. I mean, I could see why they did it. I can justify that. There's many opinions, but the biggest reason why I think they did it was because I think they needed to make some sort of change in order to beat the Warriors and the Spurs. Their last 3 games against them were not very great, and I think instead of getting rid of a player, they decided to just get rid of the coach. And like they were saying, apparently the players get along with Tyronn Lue way better than they do with David Blatt. They even go to him for what plays to run. I heard Tyronn Lue even sets up the defense, and I don't really know how big of an impact David Blatt even had. So
yeah, I think when you look at that, you have to look at it. First of all, we'll take a look at multiple perspectives, but you look at it from the general manager's perspective. David Griffin, right? Griffin, yeah. David Griffin. David Griffin, didn't consult anyone about this firing. Kind of did it on his own. I think he had a sense on, what was going on inside the locker room between players. From a record standpoint, it looks good on paper. 30-11, first place in the Eastern Conference. But the fact that you said that the players, they go towards Tyronn Lue more than they do towards David Blatt. They're more personable with him. That definitely is a huge factor. Your head coach, you need your head coach to be personable with your players, and on a name to name level, where on a very good relationship. And I feel like because of this whole situation, it just goes to show that David Griffin sensed that there was not that great of a relationship between his players, and it wasn't going to help the fact that that there's a chance that they won't be able to get that far with David Blatt as the head coach.
Yeah, I do think the change was needed now that I hear the stuff about Tyronn Lue and how big of an impact he actually has. You can even tell when you watch some of the games that when LeBron goes over to talk to the bench, he's not talking to Coach Blatt. He always goes over to Tyronn Lue, and I guess he trusts him and his opinions. And
yeah,
I just think that was it's a smart move, and I hope it works out for him. I think it might be what they need.
Yeah, what do you think about Tyronn Lue though? He doesn't have any head coaching experience. He's been an assistant coach for most of his career, as well as player for 14 seasons. How do you think he's going to adjust going into the whole head coaching experience? I mean, especially on the Cavs, where you're under a lot of pressure to the city of Cleveland hasn't experienced a championship season in an extremely long time. LeBron James is there. That's a pretty big name to follow. So how do you think he's going to adjust now as the coach? I mean, you said that the players have a pretty good relationship with him already, but he wasn't in a head coaching position. Now he is.
I believe that it's not going to be very difficult for him. He's been around basketball his whole life. He was a 14-year veteran, NBA champion, and like many other former players that are point guards, they like Jason Kidd, point guard, being a coach, and that's the Derek Fisher. A lot of them turn out to be pretty good coaches.
Steve Kerr even too.
Yeah, even Steve Kerr. There's something about the point guard position that brings out the best in coaches, and I think the transition won't be too hard for him. I think he's got a good relationship with LeBron James, and
yeah, I agree.
I think they might go pretty far with what they have.
Yeah, I agree. And tonight is the first game between. It's the first game of Tyronn Lue's coaching tenure as the head coach of the Cleveland Cavaliers, and they're taking on Chicago. And the Bulls tonight. How do you think? It's going to be a pretty big game between those two teams. Both teams pretty good in the Eastern Conference. How are the Cavs going to do? Is it going to be any different? Is there going to be like some I don't know. They're not going to be able to jive very well together. Like what is your prediction for tonight's game and all that?
I do think the Cavs have to come out and make a big statement. I think this is a key game. I think they're going to want to show that Tyronn Lue knows what he's doing, and I think it'll be a fun game to watch. They're both very good. I think Cleveland's going to come out on top, and I think they're going to ride behind Tyronn Lue, and I think this is going to motivate them. I think they might go on a pretty big streak here, win about 10 games in a row, and
I could see that. Yeah,
I could definitely see that happening, and starting off Tyronn Lue's career very, very well.
Yeah, we said that being the Cavs head coach is a tough job to be a part of, especially when you have a player like LeBron. One of the greatest players in NBA history, arguably, and probably the top 3 players in the game today, probably number 2 or number 1 even to some people.
Yeah.
And when you're a first-year head coach, even though that Tyronn, he's known LeBron for a while, it's probably that's not really a big deal to him. He's more concerned with winning basketball games, but. There is a lot of pressure, especially from the media. The media is going to be going after the Cavs now for the rest of the season. They're going to expect,
expect better than David Blatt.
Exactly. Yeah, they're going to expect better than David Blatt, but they're also going to expect this team to compete and make sure that make sure that there wasn't something else like another underlying factor for David Blatt to be fired. We really don't know the real reason why David Blatt was fired. We just know that there was they were underachieving. Yeah. But we don't know what kind of conversation David Blatt had with general manager David Griffin or the owner John Gilbert, or was it Dan Gilbert? So yeah, it'll be really interesting to see that and to see how the Cavs play tonight and beyond, especially going in. After getting blown out by the Spurs and the Warriors, because I honestly, I don't know about you, but I'm gonna either pick the Warriors or the Spurs to win the title this year. I think that that's a pretty certain thing at this point.
Yeah, unless this Tyronn Lue thing pans out, I don't see anyone else winning the title besides the Warriors or the Spurs. I think the champion definitely comes out of the West as of right now. I think the Thunder are another very good team to watch out for. Yeah. They got two superstars that's kind of what you need in the playoffs. 2 guys that you can ride on, and they have that, and they have experience. Yeah,
and this is the second year in a row where there is only a couple good East teams, and when you look at like I don't know. Well, we'd have to pull up the standings, but like the last like couple seeds, and that would make the playoffs have losing records probably, right?
In the East,
Yeah.
I think the East actually has better records than the West, but I think that might be because the West plays each other more than they play the
That's
East. And there's much more competition in the West than there is in the East, I believe.
Okay.
But yeah, the East, it's not very competitive, and it looks like the Cavs are just running away with it. I think they have a lock they're going to lock up the 1 seed, and I think they're going to be successful in the playoffs. But once they get to the finals, I think they're going to meet the Warriors or the Spurs, and
Awesome.
I guess that's what it comes down to.
Cool. Yeah. So we'll be right back. We're going to talk more about the NFL playoffs and some other stuff, and in terms with that, and we'll be right back right after this break. Do you enjoy what you're listening to on the Josh Liddick Show? Well, like it on Facebook, follow on Twitter, and subscribe on YouTube for more postings, updates, and future podcasts. And as always, keep on listening. We're back here for the Josh Liddick Show, and it's me again, and with my special guest, of course, Ben Lentine, and we're going to get right back into things. We talked a lot about the David Blatt situation in the NBA, and now we're going to transition over to another big sport, the NFL. The playoffs continue tomorrow. Championship Sunday. It's a big day, and we're really looking forward to it. First things first, we're going to do a little something different. This is the Arizona-Carolina Panthers game. The Cardinals-Panthers game tomorrow night is the second game, but we're going to talk about it first from the NFC side of things. And first of all, Cardinals-Panthers. Finally, these two teams meet this season, and wow, it should be good. I'm really looking forward to it.
I think this game I don't think it's going to disappoint. I think Cam Newton is on a mission. I get ready for some really exciting plays from Cam Newton and making the best out of the players he's got around him. No star receiver.
Absolutely.
Using Greg Olsen as much as he can, even though defenses tend to lock him down.
Yeah.
It's exciting to see what Cam Newton can do with I guess you could say a limited offense. I know Jonathan Stewart is back. He looked pretty good last week. Hopefully his ankles are still all right, and they're gonna need all the help they can get going against a really tough Arizona Cardinals defense.
Yeah.
And
the Cardinals defense is good. They are missing. Tyrann Mathieu out still.
Tyrann Mathieu is out.
And that is a tough loss for the Cardinals. And he was out during the Eagles game, I think, right? He got out during the Eagles game.
Yeah, he tore his ACL.
Yeah, he tore his ACL
against the Eagles, and
yeah. So
surgery.
the Cardinals defense has been absolutely incredible for the entire season up to then. They're still really good, but definitely that loss is going to be really hard. Although he is a defensive back, and then when you look at the receiving core for the Panthers, there isn't a lot of big names. You're right. Greg Olsen is the one guy that people are really scared of defenses, and but if you look at other wide receivers for the Carolina Panthers, there a lot of them were names like big names like 5, 6, 7 years ago. Jericho Cotchery, Ted Ginn even.
Ted Ginn made a splash coming into the league with the speed, and
yeah,
that's something you got to watch out for. The over the top.
Absolutely.
He had a stretch of games this year where week after week he was putting up like 3 or 4 catch games with like 150 yards and a couple touchdowns. You always got to watch out for that. Arizona does have a couple fast corners.
Mm-hmm.
Patrick Peterson, one of the best in the game. I think he will be on Ted Ginn for most of the game. Patrick Peterson, one of the fastest players in the league, going against one of the fastest players in the league, and Ted Ginn. So that should be an exciting matchup to watch.
Yeah, it should be really exciting. we did say you did say it, and I absolutely wholeheartedly believe that Cam Newton has proven himself this season. He's proven himself to be the guy to win the MVP this season, and he has proven himself, time and time again, that he does in fact make every player that he is with on that offense better just because of him. You know, Ted Ginn and Jericho Cotchery and these guys were, without Cam Newton, they wouldn't be high catching receivers and all this. And I think that it is really telling, that they have a quarterback that, they might not have the best team on paper stat wise in past years, but because of Cam Newton, they 15-1, and they just have a spark every time they play on the field. But that being said, they are playing an extremely good Arizona offense. The Arizona Cardinals, arguably are the best all-around team in the NFL, I would say. Even we'll get into the AFC in a little bit, but when you look at the Cardinals, they have it all. They have the offense, the good offense with Carson Palmer as quarterback, and David Johnson has been incredible running the ball, and of course Larry Fitzgerald. I mean, that huge catch that he had against Green Bay in the last round, and that's just unbelievable, and that's unmatched. And I mean, overall, they have a really great team, but I think the only difference is, the Panthers have Cam Newton. So I don't know what your prediction is for Sunday, but for tomorrow. But I am just because of Cam Newton and how hot he has been and how he makes his team. I am going to pick Carolina. And I think it's going to be close. It's going to be an extremely close game. But that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, you can't really go wrong with picking either team here. Both of them playing really, really good football. Talk a little bit about Arizona. Their offense, it was arguably the best offense this year. Carson Palmer had his best year ever. Larry Fitzgerald, he's very consistent, does what he always does. They have a couple dynamic receivers, John Brown, Michael Floyd, and this David Johnson. He really is. He's been the savior for them.
He's come out of nowhere.
Yeah, after Chris Johnson got hurt, he took over. None of them were supposed to be the starter this year. It was supposed to be Andre Ellington, but he had an injury coming into the season, and found a couple guys that really stepped up and made their offense even more dynamic. But yeah, I think another good matchup to watch is the Larry Fitzgerald, Josh Norman, one of the best corners, and arguably the wide receiver with the best hands. You don't see Larry Fitzgerald dropping many balls, and like the game against the Packers, Carson Palmer, you could tell he was looking for Larry Fitzgerald, and
and I think Carson Palmer is an extremely intriguing quarterback. You see where he came from. He was first pick of the draft by Cincinnati. Was a Heisman winner. Usually when you see Heisman winners, you don't see very successful quarterbacks. And if you look at him over the years, he's not the most successful quarterback, but he broke his leg in a playoff game, right?
He got his first playoff win last week, actually, against the Packers. And,
So, he got his first playoff win last week, which was incredible. And he is getting older as a quarterback, but you could arguably call him an elite quarterback now just because of how he's played. And in the NFC, I'm probably going to have to say that, Palmer and Newton are the two front runners for the MVP. Just because of how Palmer has played this season and all that jazz. And I'm really looking forward to tomorrow's game. What did you say? What your prediction was, or?
It's a tough one. I think there's gonna be a few turnovers in this game. I think you could tell last week Carson Palmer he threw a couple. He could have had 4 or 5 interceptions last game. Sam Shields, he dropped 3 on his own.
Yeah.
So, and that Cardinals defense, they produce a lot of turnovers as well. So I'm thinking there's going to be a turnover game. I think every possession is going to be very key.
Are you gonna say low scoring?
I don't know about low scoring. I'm gonna say final score 31-27.
Okay.
I think it'll be very, very competitive, and I do think Carolina will come out on top. I think Cam Newton leads a late fourth quarter drive that puts it away.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. I really think that Cam Newton is going to be the X factor on obviously, and the player of the game, no doubt about it, just because of who he is and what he has done for this Carolina Panthers team. We're going to transition to the AFC really quick, and guys, and people listening at home and wherever you are, tomorrow's game, please tune in to this game. This is probably going to be history in the making. It's Manning Brady 17th matchup between these two. Arguably two of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. Peyton Manning, of course, Tom Brady, and the Patriots. So the Patriots and the Broncos, and it's going to be a pretty incredible game to watch at Denver. First of all, let's talk a little bit about the away team, the Patriots. Tom Brady, of course, the season he's had, he's been on a tear. At the beginning of the season, he played way better than he has in the last couple games, of course, but they have had the injuries along the way. But with the whole we're not going to get into it, but the whole Deflategate thing at the beginning, he's overcome all that. He's overcome all those challenges and obstacles, and I think it'll be really interesting to see how New England plays tomorrow in Denver. They're used to the cold, but it's like at the Mile High. So, what do you think about the Patriots and their season and what they're going to look like tomorrow?
I think all things considered, New England had a very successful season. They had a lot of unfortunate injuries throughout the year, but I think right now they're pretty healthy. I know they have 18 players listed as questionable for that game. I don't really expect any of them to not play, especially Gronk and Julian Edelman. They're listed as questionable, but there's really no question that they're not going to play. They're going to play, and I think there's going to be big numbers from those two, just like there was last game.
Yeah. And I think they are going to play, no doubt about it. But and also, let's say they win the game tomorrow, and they go to the Super Bowl, and there's a 2 weeks in between. There's a week in between, an off week, where they can rest up and recuperate and stuff like that. So I definitely think that Gronk and Edelman and them are going to play tomorrow, and they're going to be huge factors. You looked at Edelman, his first game back last week, and the way that Brady utilized him against the Chiefs, the first couple drives really just shoveled the ball off to Edelman most of the time, and he really got open, and he really showed that he's ready to play and he's ready to get in there. He's a very dynamic player, and he's always been, and that's going to be one of the keys to that game, to their game. But then you look at Denver. Peyton Manning, we had no idea at the beginning of this playoffs whether or not he was even going to start or play, or we had no idea if he was ever going to come back at all. After being placed in the game by Gary Kubiak in Week 17 for Brock Osweiler, who was struggling. In my opinion, I thought that Osweiler was going to be the guy that was going to lead them. Probably not very far, but at the same time, Peyton Manning's back, and he's definitely on a mission. So yeah.
Yeah, Denver. I don't know if I expect this game to be very as competitive as the NFC Championship game. I think Denver caught a break last week playing a very roughed up Pittsburgh Steelers team. Pittsburgh is not the same without Antonio Brown and D'Angelo Williams, and I think they got away with it. You could tell from that game that Peyton Manning, I mean, he's not the same Peyton Manning we're accustomed to seeing year in and year out. He looked on some throws he looked good, but throughout as the game progressed, you could tell those balls didn't have as much power on them as they needed to, and I think he was just good enough to beat Pittsburgh. But I don't. With New England getting its stars back and everyone else, I don't know. I don't think that they're going to get away with this one. I think New England handles them. I'm not going to say easily, but I don't think it's going to be very stressful. I think I expect Tom Brady to throw it upwards of 50 times like he did last week. Not much running game. I think Steven Jackson only had 6 carries last week.
Yeah.
I don't. They're not really. They don't need to run. Their way of running is screen passes to James White, who he's actually very dynamic, and I expect a lot of offense from New England.
And they don't need to run because they have Tom Brady. So it's like, I mean, with Tom Brady as the quarterback, they don't need to worry about anything because they have him. As long as they have him, he's just like Cam Newton, the way that he leads a team. And I mean, he has a little more experience, obviously, but he is Tom Brady, of course, and all that going on there. But Ben, I do have to ask you, I do believe that the Patriots will take the win tomorrow and head to Super Bowl 50 to face the Panthers in an incredible showdown. But I have to ask you this: Will this be the last of Peyton Manning?
This will be the last of Peyton Manning. I don't even know if he'll end up finishing this game. I know New England has a very opportunistic defense. They create a lot of turnovers. Their pass rush with Chandler Jones is very, very strong, and I wouldn't be surprised if Peyton Manning he doesn't perform very well. And I don't know how long they can keep him in there if he doesn't have what he normally has. So I'm gonna say New England wins this game probably about. I'm saying they get it upwards of 38 points, and Denver probably, I don't know, 21. Yeah, 38-21. I'm going with New England.
All right, yeah, I'm gonna. That's a really good prediction, and I do believe that this will be the end of Peyton Manning as we know it. I believe that Brock Osweiler will become maybe not even him. Maybe they'll get someone else. Maybe they'll draft. But it's going to be interesting to see that and to see how Peyton Manning plays tomorrow and whether or not this will be, of course, the end of the Peyton Manning era. So yeah, so this will conclude our this show of the second episode of the Josh Liddick Show. Thanks, Ben, for being on the show. Yep. Appreciate it. You're welcome anytime.
Yep, no problem. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was a great time. So, of course, like the page on Facebook. Subscribe on YouTube and follow me on Twitter. It's the Josh Liddick Show. And we'll talk to you next time. And we got a lot more stories. The Super Bowl is coming, guys. The Super Bowl is coming. Thank you very much for listening and have a good night. Stay safe out there in the snow.